Test Track is all new, but is it improved? Disney invited me to ride the new Test Track before it opened and chat with the Imagineers behind the reimagined ride. So I flew down to Orlando, buckled up, and took a spin on Disney World's fastest ride. Hi, I'm James from Guide to WDW, reporting from EPCOT, and in this video I'm going to put the new Test Track to the test, and play Upgrade or Downgrade with everything that's new about the attraction. I'm not only going to see if this is a better version than the last version of Test Track, but compare all three versions of Test Track to let you know which Test Track is the best track of all. The original Test Track that opened in 1999, Test Track 2.0 that ran from 2012 until 2024, or 2025's Test Track 3.0. And I'm going to share my thoughts on everything that's new: the line, the music, the pre-show, the story, the ride experience, and the thrills. I'll set the stage here in the studio with the first two versions of the ride, and then through the magic of editing, I'll jump over to EPCOT to give you my honest opinions and very fresh reactions about the new ride. I've been on this new ride a lot and I have a lot to share. But to fully compare, we need context. So let's take a drive down memory lane with a quick Disney history lesson. Starting all the way back in 1886, when Carl Benz created the patent motor wagon, widely considered to be the first horseless carriage. Sorry, that's way too far back. Let's speed forward almost 100 years later to October 1st, 1982, when Epcot Center opened. And with it, World of Motion, sitting in the very same building that houses Test Track today. World of Motion was a classic Imagineering 1-2 punch, an Omni-Mover ride featuring tons of animatronics, telling the history of transportation that went from the invention of the wheel to the first traffic jam and all the way into the future. Classic Epcot edutainment. It's entertaining, but you'll learn something along the way. World of Motion also featured a theme song called It's Fun to Be Free, written by Disney legends Buddy Baker and X Atencio, the duo behind Grim Grinning Ghosts at the Haunted Mansion. I only have vague memories of going on World of Motion, but to a Disney history nerd like me, that ride sounds awesome. But World of Motion closed at the beginning of 1996 to make way for Epcot's first thrill ride, Test Track, which was scheduled to open in 1997, but technical issues delayed the ride all the way until March 1999. And I think those extra years in the oven really solidified Test Track as the quintessential 90s Epcot ride. I mean, the aesthetics are just so 90s. And the marketing was all about how Test Track was extreme.
Compared to other activities, riding Test Track leads to a decidedly prominent increase in endorphin manufacture in the basal ganglia. In other words, Test Track rocks!
Brace yourself.
But there was still plenty of edutainment. Extreme edutainment. You enter a GM test facility and board a test vehicle to experience the different safety and quality tests a car must pass along a track. Some type of track of tests. If only they came up with a name that conveyed that. Basically, on the first Test Track, you were taking on the role of a crash test dummy. And crash test dummies, by the way, had a big moment in the 90s. Now, I was a teenager when Test Track opened, and I loved it. I was thrilled that Epcot finally had a thrill ride, and all that 90s extreme attitude totally worked on me. But those 90s vibes were feeling very old and dusty by 2012 when Test Track closed for its first reimagining. Car design and testing had gone digital, so too did Test Track 2.0. The ride layout and vehicle movements remained the same, but it had a new story and a new look. Instead of a test dummy, you were now a car designer, creating a new design and testing it on the sim track, a digital proving ground. All the visuals were overhauled to be digitized, and Disney World fans at the time gave it the nickname Tron Track due to the bright neon digital landscape that you rode through. But then once the actual Tron opened in Magic Kingdom, Test Track kind of felt like Epcot was your mom saying, "No sweetie, we don't need that. We have Tron at home." So now in 2025, Test Track has been reimagined with a brand new story, new music, and all new scenes that highlight how technology makes our cars smarter and our lives more fun. Imagineering said that their goal with this new version is a Test Track that honors the ride's past while looking to the future. So let's see how successful they were at that. Starting with the line. Like I said, the original Test Track was just so 90s. Starting with the giant canopy that they added to the World of Motion building, and these hilarious giant banners showing what an extreme ride you're in for.
The line, though, had this cool factory feel, like you were walking in an actual test facility, where you could see test dummies just get absolutely pulverized over and over and over again. Test Track 2.0 felt more modern, corporate, and a bit sterile. The canopy was still there, but the 90s extreme banners were replaced by this giant T. And then once you entered, it felt like you were in a showroom at a high-end dealership. Honestly, I didn't really care for this version of the line, and I tried to skip it as much as I could, either through single rider or FastPass. So James, how does the line and the entrance compare at the new version of the ride?
Thanks, James. So, the new building and the new line. Everything has gotten a big overhaul. It feels very fresh, very modern. The old canopy is gone, and instead there's a new canopy that looks pretty sleek and will provide shade while opening up views of the classic World of Motion building. The logo, the signage, the canopy, it's all just cleaner. And that clean look continues as you enter into the ride building itself. The line is now broken up into two main sections. The first room is much bigger and brighter than what came before. They did some work to let in a lot of natural light into this room, and it makes a huge difference. And you get to see the ride vehicle in two different places, as the ride starts and during the thrilling finale.
Imagineering calls this room the legacy of innovation. It tells the history of what we thought cars were going to be in the future. And there are 3 different concept cars representing different decades dating back all the way to the 1900s.
So this room is really about the past to the present. Then you walk to the next section and it's about looking towards the future. There are exhibits about sustainability, about electrification, and futuristic concept cars that kind of remind me of something that I would design in the old Test Track Designer. So my verdict? The entrance, the building, and the line itself are a big upgrade from the previous version of the ride. Especially that first History of Innovation room. It's just so big and bright, and you get a little tease of the ride to come. While I miss the test dummies of Test Track 1, this feels more like EPCOT.
Let's talk about the music, because the first 2 test tracks only really used music in the lines. Test Track 1 had a funky, rhythm-heavy soundtrack that played in line. Listening to it again now, it reminds me of Stomp or Blue Man Group, with 90s synth mixed with tactile percussion. It worked well with the theme of the ride, but I never found myself wanting to listen to it outside of it. Tron was obviously an influence for Test Track 2.0, and that extended to the music. That is a good thing. It was digital, ethereal, it just had a great vibe. The type of music I can put on a 2-hour loop on YouTube and just work to. I love it.
So the new music, I still really need to listen to it more to actually form a solid opinion about it, but my early impressions are very positive. The music in the line feels very in line with the new modern EPCOT music, very optimistic. And the on-ride music is just awesome. There are a couple of music cues during the ride that create some really memorable moments.
We set a course for the future. It's always fun to be free.
So is it an upgrade or a downgrade? Just judging the music in a vacuum, it's hard to tell. Like, will I be listening to the Test Track 3 soundtrack on a YouTube loop? Maybe, I'm not sure yet. But overall, I think the use of music in the ride itself is a big upgrade.
The pre-show. Test Track 1 had one of my personal favorite pre-shows, with hilarious "oh, it's that guy" actor John Michael Higgins, playing Bill McKim, who guided you through your ride from the control center. This pre-show explained the different tests you were about to experience and what purpose they served. The pre-show also featured some great late 90s theme park mischief.
We'll even throw a few surprise tests in there.
Surprise test?
Yeah. Pick one. Now, if this whole routine seems a bit extreme, you're absolutely right. That's what a test track is all about.
With a pretty dry premise, the pre-show had a surprising amount of personality, and set up the story of the ride perfectly. The pre-show for Test Track 2 ditched the humans in favor of an interactive digital experience. There were rows of giant touchscreens where you could play this design your own car minigame, where you would earn points for capability, efficiency, responsiveness, and power. I honestly really like the design your own car aspect in a guilty pleasure kind of way. Like, I'd start out being like, okay, this time I'm going to make a cool car that's aerodynamic as possible, and just always end up making a monster of a Homer car instead. Fun fact, the Test Track car designer game is actually how Elon Musk designed the Cybertruck. So, how did Disney follow that up?
So, there's no pre-show. None at all. The create your own car segment has been completely replaced by that future forward-looking room. So no pre-show, which I kind of found disappointing. Since I was a 90s theme park kid, I'm just used to some semi-recognizable actor telling me what I'm going to be experiencing on the ride before I go on the ride. Test Track 1 and Test Track 2 had very memorable pre-shows. To go from that to nothing at all is a bummer. Now, they primed the story of the ride with the line itself, and there are certain aspects that you'll see in the second room that show up again in the ride. And the story of the new ride really holds up on its own without a pre-show. Everything does make sense. So I get it, and I think it's probably better to have no pre-show at all than oops, all pre-shows like certain rides.
What? So compared to previous versions of Test Track having no pre-show at all, there's no way around it. This is a downgrade. Now, before we get to the ride itself, let's quickly talk about the story, because this is what bridges the pre-show and the ride experience. Test Track 1.0 had a very simple story. You are going on a test track, the real-world place where they test cars to make sure they're ready for the road. As Bill McKinn says, cars have over 15,000 parts, and every one of them needs to pass the test. Test Track 2.0 had a more abstract story. You are going on the sim track to virtually test out a car. And not just any car, but your car that you just designed in that pre-show. So your digital car will go through a series of tests that evaluated those 4 categories: capability, efficiency, responsiveness, and power. As I'll get to into more detail in the ride experience section, I think this was Test Track 2.0's weakest aspect, because it was just all a bit too abstract. The new Test Track story is about the history and future of mobility, how technology makes our cars smarter and our lives more fun. Now, the history part is all in the line itself. The ride picks up with today and takes you into tomorrow. You start with some demonstrations of technology that make cars better today, like LiDAR or inductive charging. Then you start moving into the future, like what if you could change how your car looks at home? It's kind of like Spaceship Earth meets Innoventions, but much more forward-looking than retrospective. Imagineering said that they took this ride from being about behind the scenes of either car safety or design and making it much more thematic and inspirational. It's all about motion and how that makes our lives better. Now, if I had one nit to pick or change to suggest, I wish that Test Track had a bit more of that history of mobility in the ride itself rather than all in the line. Like the very first hill climb section could have images projected on the wall that showed how cars evolved up to 2025. Maybe even a couple of images from World of Motion. That would better tie the history aspect to the scenes of today and tomorrow, but that is a very minor nitpick. And I'd rather have the focus be on the future than the past. Overall, a ride that looks at innovations in technology today and tomorrow. It feels more timeless and very classic EPCOT. And even though they don't call it that anymore, it feels like a ride that belongs in Future World. The story is a big upgrade, especially from Test Track 2. Now, let's drive into the heart of Test Track itself, the ride experience. In Test Track 1, you got to experience all those tests the pre-show laid out for you. You drive over bricks that simulate bumpy terrain and cobblestone, they would turn off the anti-lock brakes, and then your car would swerve and you'd learn, oh, that's what anti-lock brakes do, by actually feeling it. You'd go through environmental tests with extreme heat and cold, hairpin turns, and a speedy loop. You had Bill and Sherry from the pre-show narrating every step of the way, which was great because it reinforced what each test was for and led to some funny moments and fake-outs. I think why the first version of Test Track is so beloved is because the story was so clear and connected to what you were doing. The tests were tactile, bumpy, swervy, hot, cold, fast. But looking back at old pictures of mine and on-ride footage, the show scenes in Test Track 1.0 were really bare bones. Because it was themed to a testing facility, the set dressing was pretty sparse, like traffic cones and cutouts of trees. Test Track 2 removed the personality for shiny lights, and the scenes looked pretty. Oh so pretty. That was immediately the biggest upgrade versus the first version of the ride. It was a much more visually dynamic experience, and lifted up the weakest part of Test Track 1. But what you were testing was very abstracted from the action of your car. Like the whole anti-lock brake swerving sequence was replaced with how your car reacts to extreme conditions like digital rain, digital snow, and digital lightning to show you its capability. Like the motion was exactly the same, your car would react to what was going on, but it didn't feel like it was a direct test. The narrators were now much more Siri-like, just saying things like, uploading SIM card data, or let's see how your designs hold up now. And that leads me to the other issue with Test Track 2. The most memorable part of that attraction, the build your own car game, really had no impact on the ride itself. Which makes sense. How could it when there could be up to 6 different designs per vehicle? So they just displayed your score on a screen when it worked. And also with both the first and second versions of the rides, there was no music during the ride, just sound effects. So what is the new Test Track ride experience like? Let's buckle up because this is what you came for and what I flew down to Orlando for. Is the actual ride experience better? So the track is exactly the same and the vehicle motion is the same. And from the get-go, the visuals feel just as dynamic as Test Track 2, but they don't have that Tron neon outline feel. Visually, I think this ride looks way better. There are impressive projections and lights, but there's also full sets and practical props. And those story enhancements make each scene of the ride more fun. Plus, there are some pretty big wow moments. I want to go scene by scene here, so if you're avoiding spoilers, jump ahead to the time code that'll show on screen right now. The ride starts by you being introduced to your human guide and your automated car, both of whom narrate your trip into the future.
Welcome, riders. I'll be your guide on today's journey.
And I'm your automated vehicle. Welcome to the test track.
The hill climb and descent feel very similar to Test Track 2, but as you reach the top of that hill, there's this really great music cue that just feels so optimistic and exciting. It puts the ride on the right foot, or a tire, I guess. So this really sets the tone, and there's no product placement for OnStar, which is a plus.
Connecting to OnStar.
Then we start looking at car technology today, with a scene that shows us how cars see the world around us using LiDAR technology. And this scene utilizes projection mapping and 29,000 points of light to illustrate this impressive invisible technology. Classic EPCOT edutainment. And LiDAR is used today to avoid collisions. So the old anti-lock brake sequence is now your car automatically swerving to avoid an oncoming vehicle. And the automated car narrator even has a cute line about how she did that.
Woo, nicely done.
Surprises, huh? I was built for this.
Even with characters that you only know in voiceover, I feel like the personality is back. Although I do miss Bill McKim. Next, there's a demonstration of an inductive charging road, which is a road that will charge your car as you drive over it. This is bleeding edge stuff, and this scene feels the most like Test Track 2. It's dark with a lot of bright, shiny lights. But comparing it directly to the lightning strike scene from Test Track 2, which it replaces, it has less going on visually. I like that the story ties into real-world technology, but I wish that they had used some of that now dark space to put some type of display that shows your car's battery filling up as you drive along the road. Because unless you've heard of inductive charging before, you might not realize what this scene is demonstrating. But then you take a turn into a house of tomorrow, and Test Track 3 starts really cooking. You drive through a garage and you get to see how you could customize and update the look of your car at home, and there are a few different projections. I feel like Imagineering has tried this effect a few times before at Test Track 2 and Radiator Springs Racers at California Adventure with the white wall tires. So what they do is they project an image onto a reflection of your vehicle. It looks great. The projected image moves perfectly in sync with your vehicle. And there's even a fun Easter egg to Test Track 1 here. Having the physical house set here makes this feel much more like a scene out of Spaceship Earth. Although without any animatronics, we can't have it all. Then you get to the hairpin turn sequence, and again we get another big upgrade. Instead of flats or neon outlines for the trees, Imagineering made a winding forest road with 3-dimensional trees and a beautiful sunset. Plus, there's a great arrangement of It's Fun to Be Free playing.
Enjoy the ride.
Sure, it's always fun to be free.
This part feels joyous and brings in a little bit of world nature. Jack from DSNY Newscast said that this sequence reminded him of Living with the Land. Then once you turn the corner and have the near miss with the giant truck, we are firmly in the future. The truck looks like something out of 2050. You see a concept vehicle for some kind of drone, and then we reach the biggest wow moment of the ride. A projection dome showing a fully futuristic city with flying vehicles. This is the part that would have made my jaw drop if I wasn't smiling so hard. My face on the on-ride photo says it all. It's such a great moment, the best version of this launch into the outdoor section and the loop, which has an upgraded speed display. So my verdict? There's no suspense here. Huge upgrade. By the way, getting to ride this early was an amazing experience, and it's letting me make some really cool videos that are coming soon to this YouTube channel, as well as Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And legitimately, none of this would be possible without you. So
thank you all for watching, and if you're not yet subscribed, get subscribed for more Disney World videos coming very soon.
We'll end our comparison with how Test Track ends, the thrills. Objectively, Test Track is the same as it ever was. Since 1999, the ride track itself is exactly the same.
But subjectively, it feels the same. But the new future scene that leads up to the outdoor section is such a big upgrade that it makes it feel a bit more fun. But this isn't an upgrade or a downgrade, it's the same as it ever was.
Finally, which is the best Test Track? For this, I have no clue because I haven't ridden it yet. But EPCOT James has a verdict. At least I hope he has a verdict, otherwise this video is going to have the most disappointing ending since Lost. EPCOT James, what do you got?
Thanks, Studio James, and I do have a verdict. That the ending of Lost is actually really good and underrated and vastly misunderstood. You see, in Season 6, for The Flash Sideways...
EPCOT James, you're losing viewers. Focus.
Sorry. So, which test track is the best track of all? Honestly, I can eliminate 2.0 right away. It had some really neat things, and I do miss the design your own car aspect, but looking back on it now, it was Test Track's awkward adolescent phase. So which is better, Test Track 1999 or Test Track 2025? A ride I loved when I was 13 and went on so many times, versus a brand spanking new ride that I rode for the first time today. I have both nostalgia and recency bias working against each other in a way that I hope cancels each other out, that I can give an honest assessment. Now, I do like how tactile Test Track 1 was, and it does have the great pre-show that tees everything up perfectly. Test Track 3 is missing that, but Test Track 3 has beautifully realized scenes, dynamic visuals, personality, music, plenty of EPCOT edutainment, and much bigger wow moments. Test Track now feels like it fits in better with other rides that make me love EPCOT, like Spaceship Earth and Living with the Land. It's a classic EPCOT ride that feels timeless, futuristic, and fun, with the same thrilling finale. This is a big upgrade and the best that Test Track has ever been by a mile. But I want to know what you think. If you've been on the new Test Track, let me know which version is your favorite. All right, I gotta get back to my journey to the road to tomorrow. This has been James from Guide to WDW. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.